Yo, what up, dudes? I wanted to wear a leather jacket or something for this video, but I didn't have one. All I had was this old jean jacket with some pins on it, thinking maybe this might make me look kind of countercultural, like a bit of a rebel, maybe. You get the vibe. But in this video, I want to talk about some of these countercultural Christians and how a lot of them really aren't countercultural.
Tell me what that means. BRMC. What does it mean?
Black Rebels Motorcycle Club.
Isn't that cute? Hey, Johnny, what are you rebelling against?
What do you got?
So I grew up around a lot of conservative Christians who loved talking about being countercultural because Jesus was countercultural, and they love talking about being in the world but not of the world. Because Jesus was in the world and not of the world. But when you compared Jesus' countercultural behavior with the supposed countercultural behavior of conservative Christians, things got really confusing. Jesus, the guy who was countercultural because he welcomed the outcasts of society, the poor, the sick, the prostitutes, friend of sinners was practically Jesus' nickname. And he led a movement of people who followed the way of love and justice, a way of life that they called the kingdom of God, which was in direct opposition to the kingdom of Caesar, which got Jesus executed on a stake on a public hill for everyone to see to deter other minorities from standing up to the powers that be. And how were these conservative Christians countercultural? By being against abortion and gay marriage and trans people while supporting politicians that lowered taxes for the rich and screwed over the poor and sick and voted for endless wars. Noticing that contradiction leads a lot of people to just leave Christianity altogether, or just leave all religion behind for good. And that makes sense. Others keep looking for a different, more healthy, loving, and just Christianity that looks more like Jesus. And both these paths are completely understandable, especially because of how destructive and reactionary conservative Christianity has gotten. And I still see conservative Christians today claiming to be countercultural, especially the Trump-supporting evangelicals. That's especially strange to see. Seeing Christians choose to be diehard fans of a guy who acts more like Herod than like Jesus is very strange to see. But there is this strange narrative today that the anti-Trump and anti-Christian liberal media is the dominant narrative in today's culture, and so to be countercultural is basically to just think the exact opposite of whatever CNN says. Again, so strange, such narrow thinking. Let's think bigger, people. Now, we all know we should never say yes to something just because it's popular. But check this out. We should also never say no to something just because it's popular. When I was in high school, we called that a hipster, and we meant that derogatorily. You know those kids who really loved an unknown band for a while, and then when that band got famous, they didn't like them anymore? That's annoying. But of course, we should say no to things that may be popular at times. But I'm saying we should only say no to things because we've already said yes to something else. We should be led by what we are for, not what we are against. By what we affirm, not by what we reject. For example, we should be against sexism and racism and ableism and homophobia and transphobia because we affirm that all people should be treated equally no matter their identity. And we also recognize the extra work that needs to be done because of the history of racism and sexism and ableism and transphobia and homophobia in our societies. And leftists like me are against capitalism not because we are against rich people, but because we are for poor people getting all the resources they need, getting all of their needs taken care of. I first affirm egalitarianism, and from that am against anything that threatens egalitarianism. What I'm against isn't at the root of this. And there's some Christians that may say, well, yeah, I'm against gay marriage and transgender stuff and some social justice stuff because I affirm the Bible, and the Bible is against all that stuff. Really now? The Bible that begins by saying all people are made in the image of God? Strange. I mean, real quick, the verses that are used against gay marriage are actually in reference to exploitative, abusive orgies in temples that happened to include men having sex with men and women having sex with women. And the idea of your gay neighbor with a boyfriend was completely out of the scope of the imagination of these ancient biblical writers. The sexual immorality criticized in the Bible is either criticized because of ancient cultural reasons, or we're actually criticizing exploitative relationships, and that was usually the case. And we still criticize that today, of course. Oh, and as for transgender stuff, there's nothing in the Bible on that. Oh, you ask about Genesis 1 that says God created male and female? Well, Genesis 1 also says that God created night and day. But we also have dusk and dawn. Genesis 1 also says that God created land and sea. But we also have marshes. So if you want to be consistent in the themes of the Genesis 1 poem, and yes, it's a poem, it's even formatted like one, look at it again, then you have to be consistent and say, yes, God created male and female, and everything between male and female, and everything beyond male and female too. I got that from Austin Hartke's book, by the way. His book is Transforming the Bible and the Lives of Transgender Christians. Very good resource. But that's not what this video is about. I just felt like I should probably bring that up while the topic is at hand, even though I could probably talk about Christianity and the Bible and the affirmation of LGBTQ people for hours. Anyway, several conservative Christians have had this conspiracy theory about the gay agenda, in which America is putting gay people in power, and some of them want to make your kids gay, or at least just make them not believe in the Bible anymore. And this was all in response to gay people simply fighting to not be discriminated against. And then some conservatives are like, well, I don't care that you're gay, I just don't want you to flaunt it. Well, the reason for the flaunting, or rather just talking about it a lot, is because there are strong conservative reactionary arms who are trying to stuff gay people back in the closet. Like, okay, you can get married, but just go back in your closet with your spouse and stay there. Think about it. The only reason we've had so many pride parades that are loud and proud and campy is because we live in a society that constantly tries to hide people that are not straight and cisgender. And this conspiracy theory that the gay agenda won because gay marriage is legal and they talk about it in schools and stuff is absolutely ignorant of the fact that LGBTQ people are still discriminated against. And I genuinely feel like people who think gay and trans people aren't discriminated against anymore probably just don't know any gay and trans people. And you may say, yeah, well, all these corporations support and celebrate these people, and so me being against gay and trans people is me being against all these corporations that constantly try to stuff it in our face. Yeah, it may look like corporations support LGBTQ people in June, but come July, they've moved on to another marketing campaign, because that's really what you're witnessing when you see corporations say anything about LGBTQ people or change their profile photo to a rainbow. Marketing. And LGBTQ people don't really appreciate it all that much either, especially because they're able to see right through it even easier than you can. And liberal progressive politicians that mention it are doing the same thing. And you know what's actually the countercultural thing to do when it comes to LGBTQ people when you're straight and cis? Is to actually affirm them. Listen to their stories and work to end discrimination in our society. And here comes the especially countercultural bit. Do it not as a means to an end, but as an end in itself. So conservative Christians need to be more open to people who aren't like them. And progressive Christians need to be more than open and need to actually do what they can to fight to end cis heteronormative ways of doing Christianity. It's like broke Christians saying you can't be LGBTQ and Christian. Woke, Christians welcoming LGBTQ people because we're Christian. Bespoke, Christians actually being led by LGBTQ voices in order to end cis heteronormative Christianity. That's what we need. So my point is, you progressives aren't that countercultural either, just because you think you're doing what you need to do by doing the opposite of what conservatives are doing. And conservatives, you aren't being countercultural by just doing the opposite of what progressives are doing. People often think they're being countercultural when really they're just scapegoating. And scapegoating allows systems of power to stay intact. Conservative versus liberal, Republican versus Democrat, left versus right are individualistic narratives that people in power love to propagate because it keeps us fighting against one another, convinced that each win against one another is a step toward justice. It's a part of capitalist realism, the idea that your only two choices are to support capitalism or to support capitalism with a bit of social justice like sprinkles on top. And both sides of that narrative think they're being countercultural by being against one another. The real countercultural move is to stop playing the game of who can be more countercultural, step back and figure out what you actually are for, what you actually affirm, what you actually believe. And then challenge not the individuals that threaten those beliefs, but the systems that threaten those beliefs. Nothing actually changes unless we challenge entire systems. Kind of like the teenager who thinks he's a rebel because he rebels against his family and their beliefs. Not really that much of a rebel. And I have my own ideas of what I think you should actually believe in the systems you should challenge. My personal beliefs have been leaking all over this video. But at this point, I just want to encourage everyone to at least start on that journey if you haven't already. Contemplate on those parts of yourself that are countercultural and ask yourself what part of your countercultural ways are actually worth it. Think of what you actually affirm and what you must reject to continue affirming what you affirm. Question yourself, challenge yourself. I'm serious, don't go click on the related video over there or down there. Stop and think for a bit. Practice some critical thinking. I'm totally cool with rebels, and I'm sort of a rebel in my own way. But I don't really care for rebels without a cause. Get a cause. Thank you for watching this video. Make sure you subscribe and check out some other videos like this one. Leave a comment. Let me know what you're thinking. Also follow me on Twitch, twitch.tv/whoisdamon, where we can stream and talk about this stuff in a more free-form and interactive way. And of course, if you'd like to support me, I'd greatly appreciate it at patreon.com/Damon Garcia, and you can see a bunch of exclusive videos over there. So shout out to my patrons already over there: Keith Wetzel, Blake the Bold, Stephen Harp, Ranger Jenny, Refined Your Scene, James Finlay, New Transcendentalist, Kristen Mouse, Mike Tugman, Peter John Blake, Mimi McGann, Callie Onion, Keegan James, and Tammy D, and everyone else. I appreciate you all so much. Thank you for the support. You can always go support me over there, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.